Hey guys, this is Shawn Daugherty from the Kansas City Shock. Last week, I went ahead and answered some questions along the lines of the league that we're in, the Women's Premier Soccer League, also referred to as the WPSL, and a little bit about the region that we're going to be playing in 2013. Well, today I'm going to answer the next question, and we're just kind of making these questions up as we go. But I hear these questions a lot, and so we're trying to put them into a video format so that people can find the answer at a moment's notice. The question today that we'll be answering is why we chose the Women's Premier Soccer League as the league that we'd be affiliated with for this year, and also a little background about how our organization got started as well. So, first, why we chose the WPSL. There's a couple key reasons that we chose the WPSL. At the time that the Kansas City Shock was being created, there were only two women's leagues in the United States. The USLW League, which is associated with the PDL and USL Pro on the men's side, and the WPSL. Between the two, the Midwest region offered more WPSL programs than the W League did. On top of that, there was more teams inside the WPSL than the W League. Honestly, the primary reason that we chose the WPSL is actually because of the cost of entry into the league. The comparative cost between the two is substantial, to the point where I said that our program was new, it's young, and because of that, and the fact that we're not really associated directly with any specific youth club or any specific other soccer organization, we need to start small and build it one step at a time. So we chose the WPSL on that end. The other reason that we took the WPSL is because of what I refer to as sandbox mode. Sandbox mode means that we have the ability to create our own idea of how to demonstrate women's soccer to the masses. There's not a lot of structure within the league of your website has to look like this, your ticket sales have to be at this price, you have to use this company to do your website design, etc., etc. I like that concept because I believe in innovation, I really enjoy technology, and I really believe that every program out there should be tailored to the unique demographics of the community that it's a part of. Kansas City, while the world could look at it and say it's a small Midwest city in the middle of the United States, has a lot to offer, from innovation to entrepreneurship to technology to, well, yeah, barbecue. There's a lot of things that make Kansas City unique, and we want to amplify that, and we want to project it with our program. So that was another big factor in choosing WPSL, was the ability to look at what we're able to do, look at our community, and be able to blend the two together. Now, there are things we're working on in between the two, to where I think that in the beginning of this season coming up, you'll catch small glimpses of it. I can't guarantee you the entire presentation in one season. That kind of defeats the purpose we build on it. So we have a lot of good ideas right now on how we're going to involve ourselves directly with Kansas City. Now, like Sporting Kansas City, I will say that we try very hard within our organization to avoid the Kansas, Missouri. Are we part of Kansas City, Missouri? Are we part of Kansas City, Kansas? We refer to ourselves as the Kansas City Shock for a reason, because we are Kansas City. So that's a little bit about why we chose the WPSL. Basically, as a review, it was because it was financially a lot smarter for a smaller program starting up. And the other reason was it allowed more creativity within inside the league, and it allowed us a little more say in the development of not just our program, but the development of our region as well. So, the answer to the first question. Now, the second question is a bit more in-depth, and it asks the question of how did we exactly get started, and why did we choose Kansas City? Well, personally, I'm from a small town north of Kansas City, between St. Joseph and Kansas City. It has a population of right now about 1,500 people. I graduated with 56 kids in my class in high school, so this area is all that I really know is home, and I love that fact. Because of that, Kansas City was an easy choice. I mean, this is my hometown, this is where I'm from. I know these people because I am these people. We range from businessmen to salesmen to farmers to teachers. I mean, it's a wide array of everything, and I like the diversity. and knowing my demographic, because this is what I call home. So Kansas City itself was an easy choice, especially with the stemming off of Sporting Kansas City, the new complex, the Overland Park Soccer Complex. As a child, I remember when Sporting Kansas City, or Kansas City Wizards, Kansas City Wiz, when they all got started. My first soccer game was actually a Kansas City Attack soccer game, which is an indoor soccer many years ago, for me many years ago. And ever since then, I've been enthralled with the concept of building soccer in Kansas City, and we literally happened to take off right at the pinnacle of soccer growth in this community. So some of it was a little planned, but a lot of it was just really excellent timing. And I mean, we have to tip our hats a lot to Sporting Kansas City and what they've done to reintroduce soccer to Kansas City and to the United States. There are a lot of things that they do that we have reviewed and we would like to do ourselves. Smaller scale at the moment, but we like what they've done because the community outreach has been so detrimental towards their success. In other words, they exist because of their fans. We want to mimic that in the fact that we exist because of our fans. We exist because of our community, our city, and our people. So choosing Kansas City was a no-brainer. How that conspired was actually because of a magazine company. There's an online women's soccer magazine called Our Game Magazine. They now do physical print also as of this year. And 2 years ago, I was writing for this company during the USA-Canada match, as a women's soccer match that was actually held at Sporting Park in Kansas City. And I was in the media booth. I'm seeing all these amenities, and as a young adult, I mean, honestly, I was having a hard time controlling myself just because it was so electric. And during this match, which, I mean, the match itself was okay. It was definitely not like the Olympic Games earlier last year. But what was amazing was seeing 17,000 people inside Sporting Park screaming their heads off for these women who rarely come to Kansas City. I mean, when was the last time there was a women's national game in Kansas City? I mean, it was a long time, if ever. And I saw that, along with the slow demise of the women's professional soccer, the WPS, and I thought to myself that this environment could be vital towards the development of women's soccer, and we can market it in a new perspective. Sporting Kansas City rebranded themselves and set themselves apart from who they used to be, Kansas City Wizards, Kansas City Wiz. And they did a lot of that just by, well, a lot of things. Primarily, they tied themselves deep, deep into Kansas City as a whole. I looked at that, and I looked at these people screaming, and they ranged from ages. It wasn't just the little girls next door that were screaming. I mean, there were full-grown men in there also just screaming their heads off, enjoying the boulevard, and having a good time. And I thought to myself, we can make this happen, but we need to do it a little bit different. So after sitting down and thinking it out a little bit, I actually took to social media, took to Twitter, and I asked a simple question. I said, Kansas City, what do you think about women's soccer in your city? And the response was massive. The people just came out of everywhere saying, I'd support that, I'd like that, that sounds really cool, why not? And it was awesome to see. It was amazing because I sat here and thought to myself, wow, perfect timing, perfect location, perfect people, perfect game. This is great. And then I had a few key individuals that stepped up and said, not only will we support, but we want to be a part of it. We want to help. And at that point I said, okay. Basically we got a couple guys together and thought to ourselves, how do we want to make this actually work? And that was the establishment of what I refer to as our founders. Ed Blythe, Jamie Wiley, and Brian Macbeth and myself were really the first ones to ever lay groundwork to this program. And I mean, they're still with us today, and they're huge, huge roles in our program to this very hour, literally. So we sat down and we hashed out a couple ideas, looked at some blueprints, thought to ourselves, could this work? And then in February of last year, we went ahead and created a Twitter account, Kansas City Shock. And we didn't necessarily have a logo at the time. That was still being worked on. And we didn't actually have a physical office. We didn't have a website. We just literally had a Twitter account. And we just started from there. And it grew. People started following because they were curious. And then we came out with a logo. The logo was good. Some people didn't think so, but there was wheat involved. And it was a starting point because it gave us an image. So that's a little bit of where we started from. Now, since then, it has escalated into having our own graphic design company, Weber Graphics, Weber Creative Arts, technically is its name, who do all of our stuff. And if you've seen any of it, it is absolutely incredible. And they're a local-based company in Kansas City. So we were able to find them. They started building it up. And then eventually, I think it was March or April, I was on a business trip in southeast Kansas, and I got a phone call from a man in California who introduced himself as Jerry Zanelli. And I really didn't know much of who that was, and I really didn't know how he got my phone number. But he called me and wanted to know what I was doing. And I said, I'm at work in the middle of nowhere. And he said, no, more or less for the Kansas City Shock. I said, oh, well, that's a program that we're working on, women's soccer in Kansas City. He said, are you going to be a part of our league? Jerry Zanelli is currently the commissioner of the Women's Premier Soccer League. And it was at that point that I sat in my hotel room and thought to myself, if we're creating enough hype through a Twitter account to where the president or the commissioner of the WPSL is contacting us, we're doing something right. And that's when it dawned on us that if we create a strong social media presence, we can build the infrastructure around that. It's kind of a revolutionary concept, especially in the sports industry, but it works for us because, let's face it, you can watch CNN, you can watch your local news. More than likely, though, if it's breaking news or key information, where are you going to hear about it first? Twitter, Facebook, Google+. That's social media. And so we really wanted to highlight that concept. And that's why to this day, while we do have a website, by the way, it's being rebuilt as we speak, we focus a lot on getting information out through our Facebook and Twitter and Google Plus page. That's not because we're limited on resources. That's because we're taking available popular resources currently and using them for our target audience, which is anyone who's plugged in, which is everyone. So that's a little bit about how we got started. Since then, we held a summer tournament. We pulled in some players around Kansas City just to get a good idea of what our demographics of soccer players look like in the community, because we have a strong key focal point on recruiting local players. We do have a couple players on our roster that are not from Kansas City per se, but we still want to emphasize Kansas City as saying there's talent inside the city that's frequently overlooked, and we should showcase it. And so when those players came out in the summer, it was 104 degrees outside at the Overland Park Soccer Complex, and they played for hours, even though it was unbelievably hot. We met some great people, found some great players, and eventually we actually got our head coach out of that as well. Nicole Ortiz was actually one of the players signed up for the tournament. So it was really cool that we were able to get that out of there. Met an amazing guy who is the owner of Proburia. You might remember that brand that they make the keeper gloves for Jimmy Nielsen of Sporting Kansas City. Met a great guy, great connections from there. And then since then, it's just escalated into what it currently is. So when we look back at why did we start it and how did it start, it started with a keystroke. And the reason we started was because Kansas City deserves it. We firmly believe that in a community that is so focused on startup businesses and technology and doing things a little bit different, that we can be a part of that, and we can take Kansas City and demonstrate it to the rest of society, the rest of our culture, the rest of the United States, and say, this is how you do it. We're literally rethinking the wheel on how to market women's soccer, because in the past, that's been our biggest struggle. Women's soccer programs have overspent and undermarketed for years. That's why leagues continue to fail. Does that mean the new ones will? No. I would hope that everybody has learned their lessons from the past decade and that something new can come out of it. We're one of those programs. We've seen what was. We accepted some of it, but we literally came back and said, we can do something different, we can do something better, and in the end we can shock the world from it. So that gives you a little background of how we got started, a little bit about our focus and our emphasis of our community, and it gives you a little detail about why we chose the WPSL. So if you ever have any questions, feel free to contact us through all those social media outlets, plus our website, kansascityshock.com, and I'll be back later with some more videos and highlights answering more questions about our growing program getting ready for our summer season. So I'll talk to you guys later. Have a great time.